first quickly, just I know we're going to start with the real estate market, but just tell a little bit about your journey, what you do and how you got to where you are. Let's just start there very quickly.
Absolutely. Thank you, Richard and Harris, for the opportunity. I am excited to be here with you all. My journey's interesting. I actually have worked I'm 47 years old. I am the only person that I know within my tight-knit friend group who has worked for the same company. And I've done that going on 25 years now. But it's been a journey. It's certainly not been the same position. I actually started as an assistant to a real estate agent in our Conshohocken office. I work for Realty currently, which is a publicly traded Fortune 500 company. And I work within the vertical of the company-owned stores, which are typically branded as Caldwell Realty throughout the nation. A little bit of Sotheby's in the West Coast. We also own Corcoran in Manhattan and South Florida. So it's an interesting journey from an assistant to an agent to being a top producing agent, really finding success and a lot of joy there, and then making a personal decision to go back and get my MBA. Go Owls. I don't remember exactly who it was, but in good company for sure, at Temple University at the Fox School. And then I came back to work for the company in a corporate capacity while I financed my education through close family and friends and investors that I worked with while I was running an active business. I really had to focus full time on my business school studies. So after that, I came back and worked for the company in a corporate capacity. My then broker came to me when I was getting ready to graduate from business school. He said, "I want you to come back and work for me." I said, "Okay, doing what?" He said, "I'm not sure, but come back and we will figure it out together." And he committed to me as we developed a business, committed to me that within 1 year, we will start to open up offices that I can oversee within the greater Philadelphia region. And within 10 months, we opened up our first office in Center City, Philadelphia. My MBA is in management information systems, so I actually focused a lot on website design, lead generation, while also cutting my teeth in recruitment, because in residential real estate and frankly in any company, talent acquisition is key. And I really got a lot of great experiences in doing that. So in 2003, I opened up our first office in Center City, Philadelphia. In 2005, I opened up our second office in Center City, Philadelphia. At that time, I became a partner/owner of the organization. Shortly thereafter, I became the general manager of the company. And then in 2010, our founding partner became ill, and unfortunately, or fortunately, the company was his insurance policy. So the ownership team made the decision that it is in the best interest of our founding partner and his estate to sell the company to Realty. So at that time, I went from an owner on the franchise side of Caldwell Banker to part of the, as I mentioned earlier, the company-owned stores of Realty, and then I became part of that machine. About a year and a half later, I was named president of the Philadelphia company, which currently has 9 offices, close to 800 agents, does around $53 million in top line revenue. We did release earnings, so I can share those bottom line stats too if you'd like. And a year and a half, or I'm sorry, 2.5 years later, I became president of the Central Pennsylvania company, where I proudly sit operating both of those regions now under one company, Caldwell Banker Realty, Philadelphia and Central PA. Approximately 1,500 agents, top line revenue sits at around 117 million for 2021, a little over 15,000 transactions. And as a small part-time job, I also serve as the broker of record for the state of Pennsylvania, which oversees about 2,500 agents, which includes both of the regions in which I operate, and then the Pittsburgh region as well. I have 20 plus offices. I have 100 people who report into me in an employee standpoint. And as I mentioned, about 1,500 agents as independent 1099 contractors. So we oversee the third largest title company in America. We have a JV with Guaranteed Rate Affinity, which is our mortgage company. That is actually quite the cash cow in the last 18 months, as you can imagine, with refinances for us organizationally. We own an insurance company. It's been a great time to be in real estate. I know everyone loves to talk about real estate, whether they own it or looking to dispose of it or looking to get into investments. I am no economist, but I of course have my thoughts on where the market is going. And that's my story, Richard, and I'm sticking to it.
Great. So obviously, David's a subject matter expert in the residential real estate market. So but he's also, when we did our prep, he's also a true student of leadership. So we're going to break our sort of discussion up into two segments. And I'll watch the clock to make sure we have enough time for both. To get his thoughts on each. So you were already just starting with it. Talk a little bit about your observations of the current real estate market, 2022, how COVID has affected it, and then continue with what your thoughts about real estate as investment, et cetera, et cetera. Just
Sure. I believe we're in a very unhealthy market. For those of you who remember 2008, through the Great Recession, we led through some really challenging times. While there are some similarities with what happened in 2008, while it's been frustrating to a lot of folks trying to secure a mortgage, Dodd-Frank has been something that really has served our industry and our economy very well to put governors in place that this market, or hopefully any market going forward, isn't going to be impacted through what I like to affectionately refer to as ninja financing. No income, no assets, no jobs. That's ninja financing, negative AM. That's what got us into where we were in 2008 as a result of all of the exotic mortgage products. Where we are now is we for the first time since Bright MLS, which is the multiple listing service that oversees the Mid-Atlantic region. It's actually the third largest MLS in the country. Since they've been tracking this data, we are at the lowest supply of inventory in the history since they've been tracking this data. As a region in Philadelphia, I'll stick to that because I think that's probably more germane to the markets that you all serve. I can't speak nationally, of course, but we are at less than 1 month's supply of inventory. So that means, based upon the absorption rates, if no new inventory comes on the market, we will run out of homes for sale within less than 1 month. That is unprecedented. A normal, healthy, balanced market of supply sits around 5 to 7 months of accumulated inventory. So that's hugely problematic. That is what is in large part driving real estate along with used cars, but real estate certainly a significant contributor to overall inflation. So we sit here with where we stand now. The Fed has announced that they're going to be increasing rates. They haven't increased rates yet. I mean, we've jumped up 100 basis points in less than 70 days without them even increasing the rates. They are predicted to increase rates 5 to 6 times over the next 12 months. So affordability is problematic within and of itself. But when you start to layer on increased valuations with increased costs to service your debt, 4.25% is a very low rate, historically speaking. For those of you who remember the late 70s, early 80s, it's still a very healthy rate. But combined with inflation and combined with the predicted Fed increases to the Fed funds rate over the next 6 to 8 to 12 months, we are going to get into an affordability issue. And my prediction, again, not an economist, is we are going to see inventory shoot up. Now, not over the next 60 to 90 days, because when you're at 0.9 months supply, it's going to take some time to work through that cycle change. But, my prediction, and what I'm sharing with my agents and my leadership team, we're going to be in August and September and October. If the Fed continues to do what they have put forth to do, we are going to see a very, very different real estate market. Does that help?
Great. When we spoke at the prep time, you talked, I was asking you how COVID had affected residential real estate, but we also ended up talking a lot about innovation, which kind of resulted from that. So just talk about how the industry is changing from that perspective.
Yeah, from a leadership standpoint, it was really difficult. It was really difficult to be a leader throughout COVID. Everyone is looking to me and my leadership team for answers, and oftentimes we don't have them. So, I just took the position to just over communicate. I had Teams, all hands meetings. We use Microsoft Teams, not Zoom. 2, 3, 4 times a month as needed. And then when you layer in the social unrest, it was one of the most difficult times to lead. I've learned a lot. I certainly made mistakes. But as a real estate industry, we went into complete lockdown. I mean, Pennsylvania was the first, as you know, and the most stringent lockdown of states across the nation. And relative to real estate, they shut it down. And that was for a 60 to 90 day period. So we had to learn how to do virtual showings. We had to learn how to do virtual drive-by parking lot closings. We had to learn how to get our escrow checks that we had on thousands of deals to the settlement company. But our agents weren't allowed to come in the office, and they weren't comfortable handing a check to a settlement officer. You all remember, standing in line at Trader Joe's with my gloves and my masks. People were just paralyzed, and residential real estate was certainly no exception. We figured it out. We really figured out how to be virtual, and then the market opened up around June and July for the state of Pennsylvania. New Jersey never really closed. I have offices in Southern Jersey and Northern Delaware as well. But Pennsylvania shut down, and then it opened up, and then it just went gangbusters, right? So it was mostly, yes, interest rates helped fuel the ability for individuals to have greater purchasing power, but it was mostly around consumers realizing what was important to them, reimagining their work-life balance. Remote work is a real thing, and it's here to stay. And the greatest benefactors to COVID were my suburban market, right? People weren't interested in density in Center City, which is a huge part of my business. People wanted land, people wanted barbecue pits, people wanted swimming pools, people wanted space, because that became so much more important to them. And as you move west to even my more affordable markets, Lancaster, Wyomissing, coupled with remote work, those markets just absolutely exploded up 200, 300, 400%. And because of the demand of buyers, and because of the low interest rates, and because of the competitiveness of the deals, sellers didn't feel comfortable oftentimes putting their properties on the market, because it was so hard to secure a move-up home or a suburban home from the city, because there were so many buyers out in the marketplace. It was and is so ridiculously competitive. So that drove down inventory levels, and that further increased the competitiveness, that further increased the appreciation rates, our average sales price. And it's been a ride, but I believe that we are in a very, very unbalanced, unhealthy market. And while a increase in rates may not seem intuitively as a good thing, it actually, for me, is, because it's going to create better balance, get back to that close to 5 to 7 month supply.
So when we talked about innovation, I know you talked about where I'm not sure the right words, you loan money, you'll actually loan money to people who are selling their houses. It's a new model that's you and some other organizations are using that's different than what you've done in the past, that helps. We'll talk about that some. Yeah.
Sure. Happy to. Yeah. The program's called Vitalize. So it's a program that we have developed in conjunction with Angie. That used to be Angie's List, but now they're just called Angie. And what we do is we offer, this is not in New Jersey as it is in Pennsylvania. I always have to give this disclaimer because New Jersey is a non-inducement state and it's just really wonky, and it's not in Delaware either. But in Pennsylvania, where the lion's share of my business is, we take, let's just say we have a $1 million listing, and we have a 6% commission, 3% on the list side, 3% on the buy side. So 3% of $1 million on the list side is $30,000. So we have developed a program called Vitalize where we can loan up to $30,000 of that commission to the seller for enhancements, repairs, things that they need to do to get their property in show-ready condition. All that we require is a 1-year listing contract. It's a differentiator for our agents. I think it's going to have a lot more traction, actually, as inventory supplies start to increase. It's a great program. It's no interest, no fees, no BS. It's a great differentiator for us, and it's something that pre-pandemic really started to get a lot of momentum. With the limited inventory, not as much, but it's something that we're pretty proud of as a differentiator.
Any other large innovations that are sort of coming out right now come to mind, or anything, how things are changing different than they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago?
Yeah, a big topic a couple of months ago was Zillow and the iBuying space, and them getting out of the iBuying space, and as a result, their market capitalization dropping by close to 50%. I always considered Zillow and iBuying public enemy number one to my business. We have an iBuying business in concert with Home Partners of America, who was recently acquired by BlackRock, and we love what we do. The iBuying is a very tricky space. They got their algorithm wrong. They could never figure out how to tighten up their Zestimate enough such that they could develop a spread along with their hold and their fix-up costs to actually turn profitability. And they walked out on that entire initiative, which was key to their overall long-term success. They're a data company. They look to data to increase and enhance their algorithms. They bought a company called Loop. They bought a company called Showing Times, which are very, very strong players in our market that collects data on showings and contracts and consumers. I believe iBuying is here to stay, but our iBuying, initiative is a little different. What we do is we say, seller, list with us, and here is an offer that you can choose to take within the next 30 days. But let's work with your agent to try and beat that offer. Whereas Zillow says, you've got 48 hours to accept this deal. So we have developed an iBuying program that works in tandem with the support of our agents while still providing that option to consumers. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, great. the last area that we talked about, which was really interesting, is we talked some about the success profile of the real estate agent, and that led to a discussion really about going into real estate and some of your thoughts about the younger people going into it. And you had some interesting thoughts about what that looks like, and so to just expound a little bit on that also was pretty cool.
Yeah, real estate's always a cool thing to get into. It looks really easy from the outside in, right? Real estate agents drive fancy cars, and they go out for martinis, and it seems, from those that are successful and are promoting their image properly, it seems like just, I don't want to say an easy, but something, hey, let me try real estate. And it couldn't be further from the truth. It is the barriers to entry. And I actually, I sit on the National Association of Realtors Board of Directors, the Pennsylvania Association Board of Directors, and I'm very vocal that I believe that the barriers to entry into real estate are too low. It is 2 30-hour classes. We currently, for the first time in the history of America, we have more real estate agents than we do listings. So that is a problem. That is a listing inventory problem, but it's also, I believe, a barrier to entry into the real estate business problem. And frankly, those people who get into real estate, do it part-time. I'm not suggesting that there aren't droves of success stories of people who started part-time, but there are people who get into this business who align with a discount brokerage, who aren't properly trained, who don't have the proper support. And those are the ones in general that give our industry a bad name. And that is something that I fight very hard along with my constituents at the National Association of Realtors to say, we need to increase the barriers to entry. We need to make it harder to get into the real estate business. It will elevate the professionalism of the industry. There are certain things that we look for. It's not man, it's not woman, it's not old, it's not young, it's not black, it's not white. We have success from all different demographics, but there are some common things that we look for. And this may seem like a little soft, but the main criteria that I need to see when we're aligning with a real estate agent is I can't want their success more than they want their success. We need a hunger, we need a drive, we need a motivation. We need them to be connected to their communities. We need them to have a sphere of influence. We need them to be in a position where they can slowly, yes, but have that opportunity to tap into their networks, into their spheres, so that they can grow and be the person who is the go-to person in their community, their synagogue, their church. I just need to see connectivity. I need to see desire, and I need to see professionalism. And there are my dogs, right on cue.
Okay, great. Great. Well, let's see. So any on this side, any questions? Otherwise, I'm going to jump over to the leadership side. But anybody had any thoughts or questions they wanted? Leslie, go ahead.
So I guess what seemed to me to be a year, 18 months, Compass real estate just, it started being everywhere. And I'm not even quite sure what their model is, except I got calls, would I like to sell my house, which I've never gotten from a real estate company like yours or Berkshire Hathaway. So how does that model differ? And are they filling a space that Zillow might be exiting?
So I can share with you, what I know about the model and what I believe about the model, but just to take the easier question first, they are not filling the space that Zillow is trying to occupy or tried to occupy. Zillow is historically, Zillow is a lead aggregator, right? Zillow did something pretty tremendous. Zillow caught the brokerage industry asleep at the wheel about 10 years ago. As a real estate industry, we did not do what Zillow did, which was build a user-friendly, super functional website to generate leads 100 times better than any real estate brokerage out there. And in doing so, Zillow, in turn, and this is how Zillow makes all their money, Zillow in turn sells those leads back to mine and all of the brokers' agents. So that is their revenue profile currently. They tried to get into the iBuying space. They were not able to do it successfully. They lost a ton of money, but that's what they do. They now say, we will sell, depending on how robust and competitive the zip code is, they will sell an agent one share of that zip code and call them a premier agent. And agents scream and kick and say they hate Zillow and they are the worst and they are vilified, but they still write a check to Zillow every single month. So Zillow is a competitor, but Zillow is a competitor in that they are creating margin compression for me as a broker, right? And what I mean by that is Zillow is charging the agents more money. So now the agents, in turn, to recapture that money, are coming back to me and people like me in various brokerages and saying, hey, the cost of lead for me is more expensive. You need to increase my commission split. And if you won't, there are lots of brokerages out there who will. And I love you, but that's what we get. I love you, but. So we have seen a significant deterioration of margin over the last 20 years, but an accelerated deceleration, I think that's the way you say it, of margin compression. Now, Compass is a very, very interesting story. So Robert Refkin, who is the founder of Compass, started as Urban Compass in New York City. And Compass has grown by leaps and bounds. And I'd say that there are two things from an outsider looking in that are very attractive and why agents are joining Compass. One, because they, in the beginning of their recruitment, not so much anymore, and this is actually in their 10Q, so it's all public, they offered stock options, significant stock options to founding partners and first-tier partners when they came into New York and San Fran and LA and Philadelphia and Atlanta and DC and really all of them. They actually now sit and copy our exact footprint. And just in full disclosure, we have a lot more revenue than Compass, but something that I'm really proud of. We are a profitable entity at Realty, and we are actually a cash flow positive entity. Compass, while growing, they're more like 2001, trying to get operation efficiencies in place. But to answer your question, why have they grown by leaps and bounds? One, because of the promise of stock offering. And frankly, it's a shiny new penny, right? It's exciting. It's something new. And, that attracts people. We have seen, and, I don't like to be disparaging. I think there's enough for everyone. I subscribe to abundance over scarcity, but we have seen that in our California markets, which are about 3 years ahead of us in Philadelphia from when Compass went live, we are seeing a huge migration of agents back to Caldwell Banker. They have 3-year contracts, they sign them up to. And to that end, I'm not privy to this, but, Compass has dropped more than 60% of its valuation since they went IPO. The strike prices, as I understand, for these options are stratospheric. They're selling a dream. They're selling a vision. They're selling it well, and with it being a shiny new penny, they are a competitor, but we are sticking to our fundamentals. They get out and they say, we are going to revolutionize the real estate business. We are going to get into mortgage and title. Okay. We did that 25 years ago, right? We understand this. We understand the fundamentals. We understand as a publicly traded company, as we have been since 2012, the importance of accountability, the importance of operational efficiencies, and we just focus forward. So hopefully that answers your question,
Yeah,
Leslie.
thank you. Thank you.
Great question,
that's
Leslie.
great.
Yeah, let's switch over to the leadership side. We've got another half an hour or so. We'll have a hard stop at 9:15, then we'll go back to the breakout rooms. So just start very generally, talk a little bit about your leadership philosophy, style, and also woven into that, your thoughts, how you run a large sales organization, so how you build and maintain a high-performing sales culture.
Oh, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
My leadership style. I'm all about transparency. I'm all about talent management. I believe feedback is a gift. I get very close to my leadership team, and I provide candid feedback. I practice what I preach. I lead. I recruit alongside with them. I get in the trenches with them. I do not sit in an ivory tower. I believe in accountability. I believe in building capabilities. I believe in stretching people. I believe that culture is paramount to your success. I believe that the best retention strategy is an effective recruiting strategy. The best defense is an effective offense, especially in residential real estate, when other high quality, productive agents are joining an office or a company that validates my existing agents that they are in the right place and with the right people. We focus on growth tremendously. We are on our front foot. We used to have managers who were required to recruit. Now my managers know that we are recruiters who also have to manage. And like someone said to me years ago, they're all going to leave. They're all going to leave. Like they're all going to leave. And that doesn't mean that they're all going to be recruited away. They're going to get sick. They're going to retire. They're going to pass. Some will get recruited away. So, it's my job to hold my management team, hold my leadership accountable to continuing to stay on their front foot with growth. I believe growth is what I dub is an inside out game. There are two types of real estate agents, right? There's the agent who builds connections within their community and their sphere and gets referrals based on that. And then there's the agent who picks up the phone every day and calls it for sale by owner, an expired listing, and is scripted. Like no one wants to do that. That's how people burn out. It is a way certainly to generate business, not dismiss it. But it's the same with my agents. I have 15, or my managers. I have 1,500 agents who work for me. So when I say an inside out game from a leadership standpoint, I need my leaders to provide the greatest level of support and value for their team and monetize that value and capitalize on that value, not in a negative way, but in a reciprocal way, so that those agents who are out on the street cooperating with other agents in the marketplace are our advocates and our lifeline to making those connections through referral-based leads for growth, as opposed to my managers, dedicating 8 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. making phone calls. Because when they make a phone call to someone that they don't know, guess what? They sound like this, wah, 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 because someone else just called and had the same spiel, and someone else is going to call and say the same thing. So there's no differentiation. So, from a leadership style, that's just really important. And that touches on culture and transparency. I spend a lot of time building capabilities with my senior leadership team, transparency, talent management. So, I'm a student of books. My kids make fun of me, but whether it's Eat That Frog or The Miracle Morning or Never Eat Alone or the Bible, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, there are Never Split the Difference is what I'm reading right now. I like to fill my brain with ideas and share those ideas with the folks who I work with. If I'm not that smart, like, what am I going to do? Sit around and come up with ideas myself? I'll never get anywhere. So I just take an active role in just really feeding my brain as much as I can. I always say it's body, soul, and spirit, right? I don't know whatever it is spiritually. It may be religious, it may be meditation, but you got to practice that. You got to practice physical. You got to let off steam. You got to work out every single day on the physical, and you got to feed your mind every single day. So I try and practice what I preach. I'm a long distance marathon runner, and I completed a few Ironman competitions. So I really try and put myself out there in hopes that my leadership team does the same.
Great. What tips do you have for being good at time management, delegation, and finding time to step back and think strategically?
So I mentioned Eat That Frog and The Miracle Morning. If that's something that's important to you, time management, those are two books that I refer to all the time. I'm a little crazy. I wake up at 5:45 every morning. I'm on the treadmill. I'm on the Peloton. I look at The Miracle Morning along with Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. And the whole metaphor of eating that frog, for anyone who doesn't know, is we all have frogs in our day that we have to eat. And they're ugly and they're hard and you don't want to do it. So just knock it out in the morning. And oftentimes you have multiple frogs to eat. Eat the ugliest one first, knock it out. Those prioritization, time blocking, saying no. I don't touch paper. That may sound weird, but I do not touch paper. I have two assistants who work for me. They manage my schedule, they manage my expenses, they manage my travel, they manage so much for me, and they are fantastic. But not by doing that, it allows me to make deeper connections with my agents, my staff, those in the marketplace. And those are my tips on time management.
Great. Guys, jump in if you have questions, but next question, I just thought of this. So obviously you're a sales organization, which leads to the whole area of negotiation. So again, as a student of leadership, books on negotiation or techniques or thoughts or in that area is a sort of a competency unto itself.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it before, and I am reading it again now. So Never Split the Difference is a fantastic book on negotiating. Some tips, some things to consider. We spend a lot of time role playing with our leadership team. Well, I don't want anyone to sound scripted. I want people to understand that whether it's real estate sales or real estate leadership, there's only a finite amount of objections that you're going to get, whether you're recruiting or whether you're going after the listing, whatever it may be. So why wouldn't you understand what those objections are and have responses to those objections? I just brought in a consulting company for my leadership team a couple of weeks ago, and we did what's referred to as versatility training. And, whether it's a disc profile or whatever it may be, I am a student of, and I have grown tremendously. And I believe that my team has grown tremendously in understanding that there are 4 personality styles, right? So in our world, we talk about the driver, the amiable, the analytical, and the expressive. So everyone is one of those 4 personality styles. So from a negotiation standpoint, you're never going to get someone to trust you until they believe that you have earned that trust. And that is through rapport building. And the only way that you're going to rapport build with an analytical, if you are an expressive, is if you speak the language that resonates with the analytical. Right? So if an analytical who wants to see the numbers, who wants to do the data crunch, who's just a quant by just trade, and I come in and I ask to give he or she a hug, they're going to be like, whoa, Just back off. So there are clues, and this is training and this is negotiation as the first step of negotiation to try and understand what personality style they are. And it's actually very easy. And then based upon that, ask questions and have a disposition that aligns more with their personality styles. That rapport is built. And from there, you take it into a place where you can build that rapport and ultimately. If you are a driver and you just drive through every conversation, this isn't just with negotiation, this is leadership as well. And you drive through every conversation, the drivers are going to love you. They are just going to be like, yes, let's go, knock it out. The expressives may love you too, maybe. But the amiables and the analyticals are just going to be repelled from you. So it's incumbent upon us to understand the personality styles and model our behavior to resonate with them through our style.
So along those lines, the success profile, like your best salespeople, aside from that sense we talked about earlier, the sense of urgency, that drive that you talked about, that commitment, other things, when you see your rock stars, what do they look like?
Well, I mean, physically, like I said before, they look completely different from one another. But the common denominators, I'd say the number one main common denominator that a lot of people aren't comfortable with is my top agents. And my top agents, individuals, do millions and millions of dollars in gross commission income annually. The common denominator amongst them is their persona is intertwined with their professional disposition, their demeanor. There is not Rachel, the realtor, and Rachel, the friend. Rachel is always a realtor. Rachel is always, not that she's, walking into a viewing with a big diamond encrusted sold sign on her jacket, right? That's not what I'm talking about. But wherever they go, whatever they do, everyone in their orbit knows that they are the resident expert on residential real estate. And as a result of that, they're the go-to person. They're also extraordinarily, this isn't across the board, but in general, they're extraordinarily systematized. They are extraordinarily buttoned up on the back end with their lead follow-up system, their CRM system, with their marketing system, because they market to their sphere of influence as well. Their transaction management system, right? All of those systems are working in concert with one another, and they also aren't afraid to make investments. One of my top agents who works out of my Bluebell office, she's an individual agent. I've got a number of large teams as well, but she is an individual agent, and she has 3.5 assistants, right? So there is so much to do around staying in contact with your clients, your sphere, your friends, your family. There's so much to do to actually manage the transaction. There's just so many parts to running a successful, sustainable real estate business. They are very much connected to their communities, and they are very much systematized.
So this is the state versus trait question. It's an age-old question, state of mind versus character trait. So when you were kind of listing some of those attributes, what can you change? What can you grow? What can you develop? And what is you just look at, well, this is just the way the person is.
Yeah, I believe that people don't change. That may not be popular. I don't believe people change. I believe people's motivation changes. I'll tell you, when I had my first child, my motivation changed. And boy, when I had my third child, my motivation really changed. But my internal characteristics don't change. My internal traits, I believe, don't change. What you do have power over, what you do have control over, is the way that you react to situations, right? We all have challenges in our lives. We all have crappy days. We all have awesome days, right? I try and work with my team, and frankly, my kids as well. Don't get too high, don't get too low. Understand the way that you react to something is a choice, and figure out what your triggers are that are putting you in a place where you're not reacting in a positive fashion, and make a change to that. You have a choice. I have a 17-year-old girl, I have a 14-year-old girl, I have a 10-year-old boy. Trust me, they are emotive, especially the 17-year-old girl, if anyone has them, very emotive, so reactionary to everything. So, whether it's adolescents, whether it's managers, I don't think people change. I don't believe people's characteristics change. I believe people's skills change. I believe people's motivation change. But I believe the true opportunity to change is to change the way that you react to things that are otherwise thrust upon you that you have no control over.
Great, thank you.
Hey, David.
Go ahead, jump in, Harris.
I was going to say, going back to the versatility training, is there a book that you've read that talks about those 4 different personalities that you like?
It's a good question. I actually, there's not that much on it, or at least I'm not aware of it. When I started in the business, my company, my partners and I, we aligned with an organization called the Mike Ferry Organization. And Mike Ferry is an extraordinarily polarizing individual. He always said, and this guy's worth hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, super successful. And he always says, hey, real estate brokerages, the reason why I have a job is because you guys aren't doing yours relative to training agents and training managers. So I learned about versatility training. I learned about personality styles. I learned about matching and mirroring and name use and open-ended questions. I learned it from him. So, I've always referred back to that. And then I came across this new company, and they've done a great job for us as well. Just trying to think if there are any books that I've read, and I don't think so. Interesting. Never Split the Difference speak to personality styles so much, but it speaks to matching and mirroring, which is a critical pattern to identify within making that connection.
Great, thanks.
Great. Any other questions? Anything else?
I have one here, David. So what advice would you give, you've touched on it earlier, to a young person who really wants to get into the real estate field and is trying to evaluate the pros and the cons?
Yeah. I tell them to go to medical school. No, I'm kidding. I would say for anyone looking to get into the business, I would say do their due diligence and meet with as many brokerages as possible. And and I don't think this is just real estate, right? I think this can transcend many industries when you're looking for employment. An interview is a two-way street, right? A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people believe they are going in to be interviewed. But I believe, and this is the advice that I would give my children, that it's just as important for you to interview them, right? It's just as important to make sure that they are a fit for you. I think one of the best ways to do that is to be prepared to have a list of questions and ask those same questions to each of the brokerage in which you're meeting, so you have an apples to apples comparison. I would suggest that you should take it further than, just an interview with the branch manager. I would ask to attend a sales meeting. I'd ask to attend some sort of training event, right? So, everyone's going to tell you that they're the greatest. No manager is going to say our training's garbage. No manager is going to say that we don't have this. If they have it a little bit, they're going to say it's the best, right? Unfortunately, they're recruiting, right? They're trying to attract people to them. I would have consistent questions with each brokerage. I would be certain to try and get as close to the fabric and the culture of the organization by being part of trainings or sales meetings or something like that.
Yeah, good advice.
And then I'd reach out to agents within that office. What's it really like? What was it like when you were a new licensee? And then finally, a lot of people believe that the path to ingratiate themselves in the real estate business is to start on a team. I don't necessarily agree with that. I believe that being part of a team provides the necessary support. If a brokerage doesn't provide that layer of support, I'm different. My managers don't list, my managers don't sell, my managers don't compete. I have full-time education, full-time IT, full-time marketing. I make investments so that the agents have support that they otherwise would need to get from a team if that team's brokerage isn't providing that layer of support.
Yeah, good advice. Good advice. Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. Anything else before we wrap it up?
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go
David,
ahead.
very insightful talk, and I have been learning quite a bit. You mentioned that the over next months or year, we'll see a shift in the market in terms of inventory, but also in terms of affordability. Considering the interest rates that will be rising, is there a certain rule of thumb, if you will, in terms of interest rates, affordability, and what it might do to actually the pricing of real estate right now, in the coming months?
I'm not sure of a rule of thumb, a metric that industry experts may follow. I do know, as previously stated, that less than 1 month supply of inventory is very imbalanced.
Yeah.
I also know a 10-month supply of inventory is very unhealthy as well. And that's what happened to us as we entered 2008, 2009, before we went through our recovery. Look, people are going to need to move. People need, their families grow. They run out of space, excuse me. They have a job relocation. I would say that, my crystal ball is a little cloudy to predict what leading indicators are going to trigger, a certain affordability within the marketplace. If I knew that, Louise, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I'd probably be sitting on a beach somewhere.
Right.
But I think time will tell. I think that no one predicted that the residential real estate industry or market would be one of the greatest benefactors of COVID, and we certainly were. I believe interest rates can go up to, when I got into the business, they were at 7%. That they went to 6%. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is free money. I mean, 4.25% is free money. I mean, that is free money. You look at arbitrage, you can make more than 4.2% in the open market. 4.2% gives you a positive arbitrage. That's free money in my book. So is 5% going to create an affordability issue within and of itself? No, but the rapid escalation of prices over the last 2 years contributes significantly to that. And that's where I believe the actual real estate market could stall.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but that's.
No, it's good. I appreciate it.
Okay, great.
You bet.
Great. All right. So wrap up. David, again, thank you. This is everything we'd hoped for. You're kind of truly remarkable leader and teacher. So we appreciate it. And
Thank you,
thanks
David.
for your time.
Beacon is the premier executive networking organization serving the Mid-Atlantic region. To learn more, go to beaconforlife.org.